Carmen. I am an addictions therapist. I do substance abuse treatment 40 to 50 hours a week. The reason I think that they bring me to talk to y'all is a couple of things. First of all, I believe in having fun. So those of you who are planning on a nap may want to step out. Second, I don't much believe in following the lecture notes. Because, guys, this is what happens, okay? They called me 3 months ago and said, hey, Carmen, we want you to come do this little presentation. And I said, what do y'all want me to talk on? And they said, well, I don't know what the people in the room are going to want to talk about. And so we have this psychic moment where we read your minds. Did y'all feel it? You know, the little mind reading thing that happened 3 months ago? It turns out that we're not very good at that. Who knew? Okay? So those of you who have been with trainings with me before will understand, but the way I work is that we're going to start out with what y'all want to know. Many of you do not get an opportunity to be in a room with a clinician who does this 40 to 50 hours a week. And so we're just going to start talking about what you want to hear. Then if we get bored and or have time, we'll move somewhat to the lecture notes. I won't entirely ignore them, but we will move to them eventually. What else? Housekeeping. If you need to go to a little girl's or a little boy's room, please get up and go. I won't be offended or upset. We're going to run until, what time, Tamara? 12:15. And so do I get my 15 minutes back? No, I'm just stuck. I got to go to 12:15. I get so shortchanged. Okay, all right. So 12:15 is when we're going to end, and I promise to do that. Other housekeeping things, a little bit about me. I am a master's level clinician in Virginia. I do a lot of these trainings. I've done a lot of these HIV trainings because I like them, because y'all are actually a lot of fun. I've been training on co-occurring disorders. Really, that's been my primary focus for about the last 5 to 10 years. I was involved in Virginia with a huge co-occurring movement about 5 to 6 years ago, where they came in and we discovered that there are actually co-occurring people on my caseload. When I talk about co-occurring disorders, for this particular conversation, we are talking about folks with substance abuse and mental health issues. I am aware that co-occurring disorders can mean all sorts of things: substance abuse and developmental disabilities, substance abuse and medical disabilities, and the fun ones are when you have all four. Y'all haven't lived until you've had that client, which many of you have, actually, for that moment. What else? Intro. There is a bibliography in your lecture notes. By the way, if you read the lecture notes, I might as well not talk, so just don't bother. But they're actually pretty good later. But I want you to look at something. This is called a TIP, or a treatment improvement protocol. Oh, I've got folks in the front row who are nodding. Anybody know how much this great book costs? It's free! Isn't that the best thing ever? It's free! You notice I moved the mic away. It's free. It's actually written in English. It is not as hard or as scary as it looks. It is written for folks without a PhD. It is written in English, and this is called Substance Abuse Treatment with Persons with Co-occurring Disorders. Promise you, if you're doing any kind of work with folks with co-occurring stuff, this is good book. And the resource is in your bibliography. For those clinicians in the room who are doing co-occurring treatment, if you haven't read Mooser, you're missing it. This is not the easiest read on the planet, but I think it actually does a better job than Tip 42. It's called Integrated Treatment for Dual Disorders. Kim Mooser is the lead editor on it. Again, it is also in your bibliography. It is a terrific text. If you have problems sleeping, this is a good time to start this, but it's a really good text. It's not the easiest read on the planet. However, for those of you who are doing direct service, nice little book, Treating Co-occurring Disorders, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Professionals, written by a couple of folks in Northern Virginia. Nice little text. Easy read, but lots of good clinical stuff that we don't always get. Did my mic just change? Okay, so I'm not having hallucinations and my meds actually are working? Okay. All right, I think that's it for intro. I'd just like a quick show of hands. How many therapists, clinicians are there in the room? Just raise your hand. That's what I thought. And how many public health folks are here? Nurses, folks who work in public health agencies? Yeah, this is going to be a fun crowd. Who's left? Just holler out what you do. Is that everybody? Health assessor. Okay.
Case manager.
Okay. All right, so I've got a room full of clinicians and a room full of public health folks. How am I going to do a training that keeps the clinicians amused and the public health people not overwhelmed? This is how we're going to do this, okay? You're going to stop me when I say something you don't understand. Guys, we're going to have a lot of fun together. We're going to play back and forth. We're going to talk back and forth. It's going to be great. But if you sit there and I say something and you don't understand what it is and you don't ask, what the heck are you talking about, then I'm just going to ramble on and you're going to lose 15 minutes of your life that you will never get back. Okay? So just ask the question, okay? I promise you there are 15 other people in the room. Yes, ma'am. I will do my best. If I don't do that, throw something at me. I dodge pretty well, but I also get the hint. I will do what I can. I like to start out with, gee, guys, we don't know what you want to know. Ask a question. I'm really good, by the way, at saying I don't know, but I make stuff up pretty good too, so you just never know. What questions do you have about co-occurring disorders, mental health, substance abuse issues, or the current state of the field today? It's okay. Nobody's going to think you're weird. You can ask. Yes, ma'am. She was not a plant, I swear to God. She said, how much impact is the DSM-5 going to have on the universe as we know it? I promise you, once we get over the hysteria and we figure out what they're doing to the personality disorder section, which right now is scaring the pants off of most of us, it's going to be okay. They're changing the substance abuse stuff around, but all right, I've been in the field a while, right? And we get upset when anything changes because we finally learned the old one. But all they've done is combined the abuse and dependence. They've added cravings in as another physiological symptom of addiction. And they've done away with the word abuse. Guys, I promise you, we will manage it. It's not going to significantly change the way substance abuse folks do business, I don't think. Okay, now again, some of these other mental health changes are much more drastic. Ours is going to have to be a little switch in our heads. What they're doing in the personality disorder section, some of the changes that they're making to the kids stuff like Asperger's, autism, that crowd, they're making some fairly significant changes there. And then I don't understand what they're doing with personality disorder. So once I figure it out, I will tell you. I don't think it's going to mean a major issue for those of us doing day-to-day treatment with nice, normal little people. Now, once we get to the co-occurring personality disorder section, we'll have to figure out how that fits in. But substance abuse, I don't think we're going to see a major change. We move from abuse and dependence to substance use disorder moderate and substance use disorder severe, is as I understand it. But it's a great question. Other questions? Yeah? Thank you. See, somebody finally asked. What is the DSM-5? Somebody hollered out. See, all of you went to school. You really did. It's called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It is the book that they give us to learn how to diagnose people. It's what I went to school to learn how to read and to learn how to use, and they're changing the little bugger. Why are they changing it? In part to make it so that we're not off the deep end with the rest of the planet. They're trying to bring it back a little bit more in line with the ICD and some of the other stuff that they're using internationally. But they're also making some philosophical changes. It's what we use to diagnose, but that's what the DSM-5 is. Thank you for the question. Other folks, other questions? See, that wasn't too bad. Nobody died. It was a moment. Yeah? Fewer medications used with substance abuse and mental health. Changes in medications. We can certainly have a conversation about some newer mental health stuff. We've got some new meds on board for schizophrenia, Prestique, and some of these effexor type of meds that they're making some changes in. But the big news in the addictions field is starting to use medications in addictions. And so I'm going to talk about that for a couple of seconds. If folks get bored, just tell me, Carmen, I'm bored, and I'll stop. But there are some primary meds that we're using now. The first step to understand is that everybody knows what Chantix is, right? No. What is Chantix? Somebody holler it out. It's a smoking cessation medication, okay? But it doesn't actually stop you from smoking. What it does is that it works on the neurotransmitters involved in cravings for smoking, okay? what we notice is that people who can tolerate Chantix really do seem to have some significant improvement on it. Again, because it's focusing on those neurotransmitters. So we've taken that leap forward from Wellbutrin to Chantix, and again, we've got some major side effects problems with several clients, but for those folks who can manage it, we're having some real improvement. Taking that idea, then we move into newer stage alcohol treatments like Campril and Vivitrol. Campril is a 3-time-a-day oral medication that is used, again, it targets cravings, as does Vivitrol. Vivitrol comes in a pill, not as, that's the brand name, but anyway, you can get it in a pill, you can get it in an injection. The injection's pretty expensive. But all of these things target cravings. The pros and cons are exactly what the pros and cons used to be. Anybody ever heard of Antabuse? Yeah? Antabuse works because when you take the pill and you drink, you do what? You get sick as a dog. So if I want to drink, what do I do? Now, I don't know about y'all, but my clients are very smart people. They know how to manipulate the system, get under the system. They can get crack cocaine and a place to live with no money and no friends. Okay? So they're not stupid. If I want to drink tonight, which I know Friday morning that I'm going to drink Friday night, I just don't take the pill. All right, so that aside, the problem with Campril is that you got to take it 3 times a day. I am a professional. I have a nice, normal life. I get up in the morning, I go to work, I eat lunch, theoretically, I come home, I go to bed, I do the same thing again. I can't take pills 3 times a day. My clients aren't that put together. I got guys who are sitting on a rooftop, you know, for 10 hours a day. They're not going, oh, excuse me, wait a minute, I got to go downstairs and take my pill. His boss going to look at him and say, get your butt back up there and get to work. So 3 times a day for the Campril is hard. The naltrexone is just not, the Vivitrol is just not catching on like we'd like it to. All of these meds for alcohol issues are not catching on like we'd like them to. But here's another little itty bitty problem. So, you know, I like it when I can read names. I can't pick on her. D, thank you, because I was not going to do well with your name. So Dee comes to me and she says, Carmen, I got a drinking problem. I need to stop drinking, but I can't. And I say, okay, well, this medication might help you get to a place to stop. And so she takes Campril 3 times a day for 3 weeks and she stops drinking. And then she comes to me and says, okay, well, I'm all cured, bye. Yeah. And then when you ask her what she's learned, what has she learned? She has learned to take a pill. And she has learned that taking a pill will help me stop drinking. She has done nothing to actually solve her problem. She's learned to take a pill. And that's my only difficulty with the Campril and Vivitrol crowd. Now, what is working, of course, is what the manufacturers tell you will work, is therapy plus the medications. But in order to do that, you got to have a good relationship with a doc. Now, our PCPs are actually wonderful, incredible, terrific people. And those of you who are clinicians, you need to get a relationship with somebody, preferably several somebodies, because you know who will give out the pills and who won't, right? But you need a relationship with some PCPs who will work with you to work through this stuff. And I've had some real successes, but you've got to get them off this psychological addiction to the Campril, because they've decided that the Campril made me sober, not me. And so we got to address some of that. So anyway, that's a long answer to a short question, but there's some really, really good stuff coming. And I got to tell you, American Society of Addiction Medicine 6 months ago came out with a new definition of addiction. I know that this didn't keep you all up at night. I, however, was excited for 3 days. I didn't know what to do. I was all, this is the other reason that they make me come, because I'm a geek. It's actually in your handout, but basically what they said was addiction is a chronic brain disease. Okay, now those of us who've been around AA have known this for 100 years. But finally somebody with an MD said it. See, that's the real issue. Somebody with an MD said it's a chronic brain disease. You know, we're all going, no, okay. It is a chronic brain disease, but the great news about that is now we're going to start seeing more coming out of the medication field. We're going to start treating it like a chronic brain disease. Now, my fear is that what that means is that they're going to put them on Campril for the next 50 years, which is not exactly what I was hoping for, but okay. But again, we're going to start seeing some more longitudinal stuff, but we will start seeing more medication, and we will see more use of those meds. And that's absolutely coming. And who knows, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be out of a job in the not-so-distant future. Okay. Other questions? Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot all about buprenorphine.
What do you suggest the time frame of a person who is on methadone maintenance to move from methadone to suboxone or buprenorphine?
I'm all over your question. Can I come at it from way over in left field and come back? Okay. I want to talk about harm reduction versus abstinence, because that's really where this question starts out. For those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, I'm going to start back at the beginning and work up again. Those of you who are substance abuse clinicians, just take a nap. I swear to God, we will wake you up when it becomes interesting. Used to be, those of us who are disease model clinicians met our clients at the door and we said, thwack, you're an alcoholic, admit it. And they said, no. We said, thwack, and they said, okay, I'm an alcoholic. And it was great times for those of us who were therapists. We got to get out all of our sublimated rage, and we got clients to say I'm an alcoholic all on the same day. It was wonderful. And then they took my billy club. It was a bad day. Motivational interviewing came into the world, and we could no longer beat them upside the head with a billy club. We actually had to be nice to them now, and so we got to come up with other options. But back then, recovery was defined as just don't drink. And by the way, drug addicts were way over there in the corner because y'all are people we don't understand, right? And then we decided that addiction means addiction. Okay, well, that's fine. It just means don't do drugs. Don't drink, don't do drugs, just don't do it. Go to AA a lot, read the big book, get a sponsor, stay sober. Well, then we started having people like Dee and I are very good friends, who get arrested for a DUI. Well, Dee's not an alcoholic, it turns out. It's just possible to be stupid. Turns out it's even possible to be stupid twice and not actually be an alcoholic. But we're meeting her at the front door and we're hitting her upside the head and we're saying, I'm an alcoholic, stop drinking. And she says, no, I'm not. And we said, yes, you are. And so we had this thing. And so we started realizing that alcohol abuse is actually a legitimate diagnosis. But we started seeing these folks. Is abstinence, I have in one of my groups, actually a lot of my groups, a 22-year-old Caucasian kid who was stupid. He went drinking one night, got behind the wheel of a car, hit a telephone pole, and now he's in my office. He's 22 years old. When you're 22, you can do anything, as you well know. Telling him that he should never drink again is not only stupid, but it's wasteful. And I don't know that I agree with that theoretically or otherwise. So we got to have a plan for him. All right, and let me back up. My name is Carmen, and I'm a substance abuse therapist. 80% of my clients are primary substance abuse. 95% of them are court-ordered through either some probation officer, ASAP, DUIs, stuff like that. 80% of my clients are male, just because, of course, women don't get DUIs, right? Turns out. Actually, I don't know how they're getting away with it, but they're really not getting DUIs. So when I talk about my clients, this is sort of the place where I'm coming from. It doesn't make sense for us to talk about this kid stopping drinking for the rest of his life. We do have conversations about something called harm reduction. What's harm reduction? Somebody just yell it out.
Cutting back.
Cutting back? Good. Say it louder. Don't drive? Okay. Good. What else? When we say harm reduction in general, what are we talking about? Decrease the negative consequences associated with use. It turns out that sometimes when you're 22 and you're stupid, you can get a little education and be taught to not be dumb again. And it works sometimes, especially if you don't really make them mad and you meet them where they're at. It actually works sometimes. Okay, so when we talk about harm reduction, we talk about D, who got a DUI, and maybe we just need to talk to D about how not to drink and drive, about making good decisions when you do drink, and what does that look like. But then we've got this other problem, right? We've got folks who desperately want to stay sober but cannot right now. Doesn't mean they can't ever. Just means today, given the best of their abilities, they can't. I have a client with cocaine dependence and schizophrenia. Yeah, that's what you said. This is the client that you crawl under the table away from. Please, 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 please do not come to see me. And we created this program based on contingency management. Anybody know what contingency management means? We pay them not to use. This fellow over here is looking at me like I have just said, your mama is, yeah. We pay them not to use. So this is what it looks like. Can I have anybody else's name? Because a D is getting tired of having all the problems. Cynthia, thank you. Cynthia comes in to see me with cocaine dependence and schizophrenia, and Cynthia's had 5 psychiatric admissions in the last 3 years. She can't stop using, her housing is unstable, her relationships are unstable, life is uncool. And so what we do is we bring Cynthia into a small program, and I know because we built this, we had between 5 and 10 clients on a master's level clinician's caseload. You see where I'm going? 10 clients, master's level clinician. Okay? You don't give these people 50 clients because they quit. Okay? You don't give these people 50 clients because they quit. We found some money with the co-occurring stuff to hire. I only had her half-time in this particular position, but she did a nice job. But I got a highly qualified, highly motivated young, because the smart ones weren't going to take this, clinician to run this program. And we took 10 of the worst clients our community mental health center had to offer. Give us your 10 worst. And we took them. What we did was we said, Cynthia, you come to group on Tuesday and you get to pick a piece of paper out of this bowl. If you just show up, you get to pick a piece of paper out of the bowl. And the piece of paper might say, congratulations, we're so excited that you made it. Oh, by the way, we fed her too. Did I mention that? Food is a wonderful thing. We fed her and she got to pick a piece of paper out of the bowl. Sometimes the piece of paper said, you win a $2 prize. Sometimes the piece of paper said, you win a $5 prize, and sometimes the piece of paper said, you win a $50 prize. Guys, I was given a $5,000 budget. We had used less than half of that 2 years later. Yeah, I mean, this is incredibly cost efficient. We let the clients pick the prizes. So, you know, and they were great things like socks, you know, gift certificate to McDonald's. I mean, we let the clients pick the prizes. It is incredible what happens. You meet these clients where they're at. You use contingency management. By the way, they pick when they get there, and they get to pick again if they met their goal. For some people, their goal was a clean screen. For some folks, it was taking their meds regularly. For some folks, it was just, frankly, getting there and getting there on time. But you see what I'm saying? We meet the clients where they're at. This is good co-occurring disorder treatment, guys. We don't ask them to show up every day because they can't. Right? We don't ask them to show up always on time because they can't. Right? So we meet them where they're at. And we let them pick a thing. And you know what? These guys got better. We had no psychiatric admissions in the first year. I think for total we had 3 psych admissions in the full 2 years I was there. They were briefer than they had been before, and most of the clients were stable by the time I left. We had a little bit of dropout, but not a ton, mostly due, frankly, to them moving to more stable atmospheres. Contingency management is this idea that we meet the clients where they're at. We're not kicking them out for using. You know, I had a guy who came in and he said, Carmen, I'm addicted to cocaine, alcohol, PCP, and by the way, I'm bipolar. And I said to him, what's the drug that's causing you the most problem? And he said the cocaine. And I said, okay, can we get rid of the cocaine for 2 days? Can you go 2 days without using cocaine? You get it? We're not asking him to stop using for forever. Look, guys, 50%, do it the other way. It takes 4 years for half of these severe clients to get stable. 4 years. How many of us are with one client for 4 years? Almost none of us. We have such huge turnover. 4 years for half of these people to get better. By the way, that means it's a heck of a lot longer for at least half of them, right? We got to lower our expectations. By the way, with co-occurring, I swear to God, I'm coming back to your harm reduction. I'm coming there. I just told you it was going to be a long way around. By the way, why don't these clients come back? Why do we have a hard time keeping them? Yeah.
Probably just, you actually just straight out abstinence.
We're having a hard time keeping them because our requirements are unreasonable because we're asking them for abstinence. Good. That's one reason. What else? Why do we have a hard time keeping them? Just holler it out. They're not ready yet. Yeah, motivational stuff, although if we're good at motivational, we'll meet them where they are, right? But yes, you're exactly right. Good. What else? Say it again. Lack of transportation and all that other stuff, right? They don't own a watch, or if they did, they wouldn't know how to, they don't really care anyway. Good. What else? Lack of trust. Why don't they trust us? They don't know us? Yes, they do. Why don't they trust us? Because we don't like them. Guys, I know some of you are shaking your heads, but we do not like these people. Just be honest. Why don't we like them? Because they're a lot of work and time, and they don't what?
They don't stay clean.
They don't get better.
They don't get better.
I got in this field to help people. I feel good when they get clean. And they don't get clean, they don't get sober, their lives are sucked, and I hate them. But guys, we got to be honest about it. We've got to be honest about how we're feeling about these clients, because we can't get better if we're not at least acknowledging the problem. A lot of these clients are not coming in because they don't trust us, and why don't they trust us? Because we don't like them. Because they're not fitting into my little box. My little box says you got 16 weeks to get your butt clean and sober, and if you can't do that, get the hell out of my office. Right? We got to throw all that out, guys. First of all, we've got to acknowledge that we don't like them, and that's okay. When I ran this intensive program, me and that clinician met at least once a week face-to-face and often talked more times in the middle. And sometimes it was just, I'm going to kill him. I swear to God, I'm going to kill him. I'm just going to wring his neck. And that's okay. Those of you who are supervisors, you've got to allow your clinicians to do that. It's got to be a safe place to come in and say, I want to kill my client today. All right, now you do need to check for weapons and other stuff like that. And maybe a duty to warn. But in general, we have to, those of us who are supervisors, we have to allow our clinicians to understand this is horrendous work. Nobody wants to do this job. Nobody. So we really have to support them by doing what? By going to the executive director and saying 10 clients is enough. By finding money for them so that we can keep good, intelligent, well-prepared clinicians. We don't do it by throwing them out. You know that we all do this, right? The new kid comes on the block, you give them a stack of 100 cases and say, call me tomorrow when you've read, right? That's what you do. That's what they did to you. It's certainly what they did to me. Okay. Co-occurring disorder treatment, we've got to start with we don't like these clients. Why don't we like them? We don't like them because they don't get better. So part of what we need to do is lower our expectations. And I promise you, your little life, your little brain will light up when Cynthia shows up and pulls out her $2 thing. She is just the happiest person on the planet. Oh my God, I got a pair of socks. She's an incredible, this is good stuff. By the way, what is the single thing that gets clients clean and sober? The one thing that gets clients better. The one single underlying thing that all clients need and they will get better with. Yes, relationship. If I like Cynthia and Cynthia likes me, the probability of Cynthia getting better goes up huge. And really, it's not about the voodoo that we do, guys. Those of you who are clinicians know this. You've seen all the research. Evidence-based treatments, not evidence-based treatments, this treatment, that treatment, AA, rational recovery, smart, whatever. It's all sort of the same. If I like Cynthia and Cynthia likes me, Cynthia is pretty likely to get better if we just stay together long enough. All right. That's a rabbit. I swear, I'm coming back. I know where I started. Okay. I get off on these little tangents. And by the way, guys, almost all of this stuff that I'm talking about is in your handout. I'm just not following it the way it was written. So we have to lower our expectations. And when we lower our expectations, we're happier, our clients are happier, everybody's happier. We meet them where they're at. Okay? Sometimes with the client back there who doesn't want to get better, sometimes it's just, okay, come in. I read this article in Counselor magazine 15, 20 minutes ago. I was talking about primary care physicians just talking to their clients about their substance use. I went in to see my PCP about 6 months ago, and she said, and what substances are you using? What? I was so proud of her, I could spit. I'm so proud of you. She asked me about marijuana, too. I was just so pleased. She knows what I do, but I thought it was kind of fun. They're starting to ask their clients, what are you using? And sometimes, if they just walk in and you say, hey, how you doing? How's that marijuana use going for you? Sometimes that is just enough to hook into them, 4 years for 50% of these clients to get better. Sometimes if we just develop a relationship with somebody, my kid who's got a DUI, if he actually develops a drinking problem, at least his first therapeutic experience was a positive one, and so he's more likely to come back. So, with these clients who are unmotivated, we just meet them where they're at. Abstinence versus, okay. So harm reduction is sometimes the best idea for our clients with co-occurring disorders. And with opiate dependence specifically, methadone maintenance is an evidence-based practice. Now, I know some of you are going, methadone bad. In Fredericksburg, they don't believe in methadone. I don't know why. I think that they can't read. But methadone maintenance is an evidence-based practice for opiate dependence. And as much as those of us who are old-style disease model clinicians don't like it, it is still an evidence-based practice. And for some people, it's working pretty nicely as a harm reduction approach. It's not expected to be AA. It's not expected to be abstinence only. We got to meet clients where they're at. Now, the short answer to your question is I have absolutely no idea. I am not a pro at methadone maintenance. I will tell you that I just saw a study yesterday. I told y'all that one of the reasons that they had me come and talk to y'all is because I'm a geek and I read this stuff for fun. Right? Did I tell y'all that? Okay, I'm a geek and I read this crap for fun. There's an article on the National Institute of Drug Abuse. By the way, any of you who are not familiar with the NIDA website, www.nida.gov, National Institute of Drug Abuse, it's just the bomb. But they've also, I have a little handout. They've also got a whole page set aside for medical professionals. It's called NIDA Med. Just go to the National Institute of Drug Abuse and go to NIDA Med. And it'll bring you to this great page. It's got lots of great screening things on it. But anyway, it's all set up for you medical professionals. Anyway, article on National Institute of Drug Abuse was the first one I had seen that was talking about buprenorphine as a long-term maintenance option, moving folks. I think they were talking about moving folks over from yeah, they were, because there was this whole detox period and then putting them on buprenorphine. The answer is it's still too young to know. We haven't done enough work yet. I also saw an article on buprenorphine and methadone with buprenorphine and pregnant women, because we still don't have any guidance on that yet either. It's coming, and my belief is that Suboxone, buprenorphine, is going to replace methadone just because it's cleaner. That said, addicts will do anything. So yes, I believe it's coming. We're still having the research. If you want to know the current stuff, there's those 2 articles on NIDA. Okay? That was a long answer to a short question, wasn't it? I can talk about anything. What else? Before I go clean up stuff in our lecture notes. Yeah, everybody's still asleep. Put those clinicians to sleep, and they're just not in there. Okay. Looking at the lecture notes for a second. What is alcoholism? What is alcohol dependence? I use those terms interchangeably. What is alcoholism? What is alcohol dependence? Somebody other than the substance abuse therapists. Just take a whack at it. I promise you I won't pick on you.
One of the definition,
Sure.
of chronic, progressive, potentially fatal disease that's characterized with physiological, psychological.
Yeah, your teachers are very happy of you. She said, a chronic, progressive, eventually fatal disease that is characterized by denial, yada, yada, bang, bang, bang. Yes, all of that stuff is absolutely the definition of addiction. Can somebody give me a shorter one? The definition of addiction is loss of control. There are lots of better definitions out there. There are lots of better, more precise definitions. But those of you who are in the nurses, the psychiatric nurses, the healthcare nurses, what I want y'all to note is the definition of addiction is loss of control. That's nice and easy to remember. That's just the place to hang out at. Okay? Now, we can talk about chronic disease of the brain, and we will get there in a second. But the first place to know is that addiction is a loss of control. The thing that we're starting to realize, those guys, is that it's a hardware problem, not a software problem. Yeah. The ASAM definition, addiction is a chronic disease of the brain. You know, those of us who've been around AA for 1,000 years have known this, right? I have an allergy to alcohol. Every time I drink, I break out in handcuffs. Y'all know that? That's a great joke. I evaluated a guy yesterday who has 3 DUIs, 2 drunken publics, 2 open container charges, and 2 possession of marijuana charges, but he says he doesn't have a drinking problem. No, he doesn't, but he clearly has an allergy issue. I don't know. But those of us who've been around AA have heard this for a long time, but it's turning out to be true. People with addiction problems seem to process their drug of choice differently than people without addiction problems. Said differently, people who lose control seem to have a brain hardware problem. Guys, it's not just software. It's not just I'm not strong enough. It's not just I don't have the willpower or I'm unmotivated. It's not just you gotta have willpower. You gotta want to stop. All of that stuff has got to be in place. But guys, it's a hardware problem. It's like being in a car with no brakes. No matter how smart you are, stopping that car is going to be hard. It's a hardware problem. That's where the meds come in. Now, the solution is both a hardware and a software solution. But the thing that we've got to understand is that these people are not weak, they're not wimpy, they're not worthless, they're not useless. Their brakes don't work. So when we talk about what is addiction, when we talk about addiction as a loss of control, we're actually not kidding about that. They lose control of their substance use once they get started. Okay, so at the top on your handout is this discussion of use, abuse, dependence. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Part B is the ASAM definition of addiction, which I'm also not going to spend a lot of time on. ABCDE definition of addiction, I kind of enjoyed that. We've talked a little bit about abstinence and harm reduction, but I want to move into, we got time. What is the difference between, is type 2 diabetes and alcoholism, how are type 2 diabetes and alcoholism different? How are they different? Type 2 diabetes is a type of diabetes that I'm going to get if I don't lose some weight. I'm trying, I swear to God I am, but those M&Ms are not helping me. But I'm going to get type 2 diabetes if I don't lose some weight. I've got a family history of it, I'm overweight, yada, yada, bang, bang, bang. What's the difference between type 2 diabetes and alcoholism? How are they different?
What you can do something about.
Oh, I love it. One of them you can do something about, she says. Good. Keep going. We'll come back to these answers. What else? How are they different?
One is looked down upon by society.
Ah! She said one is looked down upon by society. So I look at my primary care physician, who I like a great deal, and she looks at me and says, Carmen, you know it's coming. And I said, yes, Dr. Brown, I know it's coming. She said, have you lost weight? I said, yes, ma'am, I've lost 15 pounds. And she said, good girl, you got about 30 more to go. I threw something at her at that point. She's a wonderful lady. But yes, my doctor talks to me, and she's not mad at me, certainly, right? But if I go in with alcoholism, I got a whole different conversation, right? So one of them has a huge stigma, the other one doesn't. But I want to come back to your question eventually. Yes, how are type 2 diabetes and alcoholism different?
And you're speaking of as far as like classifying them as diseases and illness, right?
Don't overthink it.
So there's no difference.
Okay. Yeah. One is physical, one is psychological. Keep going. This thing just comes in and out. Yeah. One you have to have medication for, the other one not? Okay. Type 2 diabetes and alcoholism are not at all different. They're exactly the same. Alcoholism is absolutely treatable. In fact, there is no... When I was in graduate school, one of my professors looked at me and he said, Carmen, you never want to do substance abuse and you never want to go to court. He was right about the court thing, but he was crazy wrong about this substance abuse thing. Guys, I've been in community mental health all my professional career, and I can tell you that there is absolutely no field on the planet that is wonderful as substance abuse. Because Cynthia will walk in on day one looking like just horrible. And 4 months later, she is feeling like $1 million. And there is nothing on this world that turns around that fast. It's a wonderful, wonderful field. It is absolutely treatable. Addiction is absolutely treatable, and we're actually not bad at it. With the advent of motivational interviewing, we're meeting people where they're at. With some of this co-occurring stuff, we're doing a much better job so that clients are trusting us a little bit more. But addiction is absolutely treatable. The lady in the back said medications are used for diabetes, not so much for alcohol, but we've already had that conversation, right? We're starting to use medications more and more and more and more. And somebody up here said something else. I don't remember. Does anybody remember what? Say it again? Physical and psychological. That diabetes is physical and addiction is psychological. Any of you people know somebody who's diabetic? They sneak cupcakes. You will find them with cupcakes all over the place. My father-in-law has a cupcake addiction and he's hiding it from his wife. He has a cupcake problem. It is a psychological issue for him because the man likes cupcakes. Because all diabetes is about the sugar thing, right? And so we crave sugar. So of course there's a psychological component to it. And addiction has the same thing, right? We know now that addiction is physiological, right? We know that it's a hardware problem, so it's not just psychological anymore. There are certainly psychological treatments because we don't have anything yet to fix the hardware problem. But we do have some plans on how to address the psychological one. But here's the other difference actually between diabetes and addiction. We believe that diabetes is a long-term chronic disease that requires long-term help. We believe that addiction is cured in 16 sessions of education. What, that's not right? Oh, come on. I have a 16-week program. I'll fix lots of people. Right, it's not, right? We're starting to move off that, especially those of us who do court-mandated treatment. We do have a lot of time-limited stuff. People enter my program, they come and stay an individual for a couple of months. They stay in a once-a-week group for 16 weeks, a twice-a-week group for 8 months, or a year-long program, right? But that's it. That's all you get. Because that's what the program's set up as, and God, by God, you got to fit in one of them boxes. But it doesn't work that way, right? Recovery-oriented systems of care is the new term of the day, okay? But what they're saying is something that AA, again, has known all along. We're starting to realize that Bill W. was actually a genius. Some folks, anyway. Recovery-oriented systems of care says this is a long-term problem, guys, and we've got to treat it like a long-term problem. It is not a 16-week solution or an 8-month solution or a 1-year solution. We've got to do this long-term, especially with co-occurring clients. So Cynthia comes in with her cocaine dependence and schizophrenia, and she's taking her medications and she hasn't used in 6 months, and Sally, who was her therapist, moves on to a better job, of course, because she's good, you know, and she made it through. And then Cynthia drops off the face of the planet, and we forget Cynthia. Only then her cousin shows up. You know it's always a cousin, right? It is always a cousin. Trust me, it is always a cousin. Her cousin D shows up, and now we got problems again. Only now nobody knows, because Cynthia hasn't seen her case manager in 6 months, and why do we care? Because Cynthia's stable. We forgot about Cynthia. We let Cynthia fall off the face of the planet. We forgot that recovery is a long-term problem and needs long-term treatment and support, not 16 weeks of education. Recovery-oriented systems of care is starting to move us away from this notion of an acute treatment episode to what does long-term treatment look like. Now, as outpatient clinicians, we know we see a client for 6 months. It's unusual for me to have a client more than a year. So we've got to decide what does long-term support look like with that client. My problem is that I think AA was sent from heaven. And so my solution to everybody is go to AA. What's the problem with that? One-stop shopping, first of all, doesn't work. A lot of folks don't like AA or don't benefit. And my cocaine schizophrenia lady is not going to do well in group anyway. Right? And so I look at Cynthia and say, tough noogies. That's all we got. Go away. And that is literally all Fredericksburg has. We don't have any other kind of support systems. So does that let me off the hook? I just push Cynthia out the door and say, have a good time? No, it's my job to start doing something about it. Right? And there's all kinds of creative ideas about how to keep Cynthia involved. We allow folks to stay free once they've completed treatment. You can stay in therapy as long as you want to, in group therapy as long as you want to, for free, once you've completed the court-ordered treatment program. And an attempt to help keep folks long-term, but it doesn't seem to work real well. And these are high-functioning folks, okay? We're not even talking about the lower-functioning people. So we're going to have to come up with something better. There are lots of theories out there on how to do that, and I don't want to spend the 20 minutes on it today. There are lots of theories on how to do that better, but the thing I want to plant in your head is that treatment has to keep going, And a sponsor and AA can't be the only ones to do that, because that ain't working for everybody. Recovery-oriented systems of care have to be long-term. We're also talking about intervening much earlier with things other than just DARE. But, okay, that's out there. Tamara's not here. She's not shutting me up. Do I get to go to 12:15? Is that what she said? 12, oh, okay. All right. You get to vote for 12:15. That's what we're voting for? You don't want to do 12:01? Yes, sir. Okay.
You said that addiction is a hardware problem.
I said I believe addiction is a hardware problem. Yes, sir.
And I'm a fan of MMA.
Okay.
How do you justify a hardware problem utilizing long-term medication?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a lovely man. He said, if addiction is a hardware problem, how do you justify it using long-term medications? The answer is because it seems to work. Isn't that obnoxious? That is absolutely the most obnoxious answer I could possibly give you, and I apologize. When we talk about methadone maintenance specifically, evidence-based practice says it seems to work as a harm reduction approach to keep people from continuing to engage in high-risk behaviors, like IV drug use. Now, when we talk about other disorders like alcoholism, cocaine dependence, stuff like that, I haven't seen any studies that talk about long-term medication maintenance for those folks, although I believe it might be coming. You've met this client, I'm sure. The guy who, well, let me back up. I left my house this morning at about 7 a.m. and I go to the local Wawa, I don't know if y'all have Wawas, to get my cream and sugar. All right, I add a little coffee to it, but mostly it's just cream and sugar. And I always read the front page of the local paper. And the front page on the very front at the top of the fold says, man convicted of 12 DUIs. Now, I got to tell you, the happiest moment in my life was to realize that I didn't know his name. I know it's a sad thing, and I'm very selfish, but I was just really glad I'd never heard of this guy. 12 DUIs. If I had a pill that would help him not drink, if I could put him on Campril long term and it worked for him, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because clearly this guy has been offered treatment after treatment after treatment after treatment, and it hasn't worked, obviously, or he wouldn't have gotten his 12th DUI. So that's answer number one. But I think your question is more of, if it's a hardware problem, why do we need to keep doing this stuff long term? And my answer is because it turns out actually that therapy, education, and experience can do what to the brain? It can rewire it. It turns out that therapy, education, and experience actually does some rewiring up here, and we have absolutely no idea what that's about, why, or how long it lasts. But we know it works, which is why when we say we have a long-term chronic brain disease, therapy seems to help. And the other part of that is, even though it's a hardware issue, we can learn some software coping skills to rein it in. You may always be an alcoholic, but I can help you learn some lifestyle changes that help you keep that in check. It's a long answer to a short question, but did I answer it? Sir?
The reason I'm saying that is because it's like, you know, I hear people like yourself and other people now, X number of years later, verify that, oh, this
What we've known all along. That's it.
Oh, yes, it is clinically acceptable. Okay? Unless I change, if I have a problem with my addiction and I start out dealing with it from medication, that's one thing. But unless I start to change my thinking, unless my, you know, that's what.
Preach it. That's it. That's it. Exactly what he's saying. And he's exactly correct, right? Unless I fix my software problem, the hardware problem is not going to stay fixed with pills. All we're going to do is, like we talked about with the Campril, we're going to put a Band-Aid on it. We actually have to fix the thinking and feeling issues that come with my addiction, right? It's a three-headed dragon, and just because we cut off the drinking head doesn't mean that I've solved my problems, right? We've still got the thoughts and feelings that we're carrying around with us. Absolutely. We absolutely have to solve the software problem. When talking about co-occurring disorders, we can actually, let me do this real quick and then I will come to you. When talking with clients with co-occurring disorders, we can actually talk about 4 different levels, and this is on page 3 out of your lecture notes. You don't have to look at it, but I just wanted to tell you where it is. We can divide co-occurring disorders into 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 are people with not much of a drinking problem and not much of a mental health problem, okay? And they are generally seen in primary care physicians. Then we have people with a lot of mental health problem and not much substance abuse problem. Where are they generally seen? Outpatient mental health somewhere, right? Then we have people with severe substance abuse problems and not much of a mental health problem. Where are they generally seen? Rehab, outpatient substance abuse treatment, but it's the quadrant 4s that we're talking about. These are the folks with serious mental health problems and serious addiction problems, okay? So when I talk about my lady with cocaine dependence and schizophrenia, she's a quadrant 4. What I want y'all to understand is that you're already treating quadrants 1, 2, and 3. We've actually already solved all those problems. You fixed them all. Congratulations. They're all cured. Don't you feel better? No, not so much. We got all these quadrant 4s wandering around. Guys, we're doing a fantastic job with quadrants 1, 2, and 3. Most of y'all are learning how to handle small-time mental health problems or small-time substance abuse problems in your current facilities. It's the quadrant 4s that are getting us. What I want you to understand is that quadrant 4s are hard clients to treat, and you absolutely must have help. Nobody on the planet is expected to treat these people all by your little lonesomes, and here's the bad news, you can't. We need physicians, we need case managers, we need clinicians, and by the way, what do we all need to do? We have to talk to each other. You know, we were standing outside talking about these outpatient mental health programs where the mental health team has a hall and the substance abuse team has a hall and nobody knows each other. Because God forbid the mental health people sully themselves with the substance abuse folks, and the substance abuse folks are so busy climbing out of the hole that they've been in that they don't want to deal with the uppity mental health people, and none of us talk to each other. And by the way, these clients are killing us anyway, so why do we want to talk about them? Right? When we talk about co-occurring disorder treatment, it's helpful sometimes to figure out exactly what we're talking about. Is this a quadrant 3 that I should be able to manage? Or is this actually a quadrant 4 and we need to get them the help that they need? Right? So when we talk about co-occurring disorder treatment, no matter what your setting is, you need to figure out who you're looking at. And all of y'all are capable of doing that, right? Does this person have a little bit of a depression issue, or has this person been in the hospital 4 times in the last 3 years for depression? You're capable of figuring that part out. And once you identify the quadrant 4s, then we start throwing the kitchen sink at them. One more hit for something else, and then I'm coming. I swear I am. I went to famous therapist school to learn how to be a counselor. And I came out knowing almost as little as I did when I went in, because they taught me a lot of theory and not much application. Right? We all did that, right? All of us go to school and okay. And so we came out and we've got all this theory in our heads and we don't quite know how to put it all together. And then motivational interviewing, at least on the substance abuse field, came on the scene. And it changed the way we did business. Because before that we had AA, we had rational recovery, we had some cognitive behavioral stuff. Alan Marlatt was coming out with his relapse prevention stuff, and Gorski was what all of us read, right? Because wherever California is and Bow, right? Because Gorski is the guide, and Gorski's a wonderful guy, and he certainly started all of it, right? And Marlatt just picked it up and stole from him mostly. But then motivational interviewing came on the field. What is motivational interviewing? Somebody, or motivational enhancement therapy? Somebody just hollered out.
We call it HIV prevention counseling, but it's asking the open-ended questions, facilitating conversation, going where the client is.
Oh, I love it. She said we call it HIV prevention counseling, but it's actually meeting the clients where they are in their stage of change. It's incredible, because that's where I'm headed. All of you health department ladies, all the nurses and the folks who are doing data entry, those of you who have not heard about motivational interviewing, you need to get it. I swear to God, it will change your life. It's about meeting clients where they are. It's about understanding that a client is not ready to change yet, but you can still talk to them. And I'm a little bit ready to change, and how to talk to them. And I'm a lot ready to change, and how to talk to them. And I'm done with my change, and how do I keep it? There is motivational interviewing. There are online classes out there. I swear to God, they're not just created for clinicians. It will change the way you do your practice. Those of you who are long-term clinicians, I just retook an MI Advanced about I don't know, 9 months ago, it's amazing what you forget. I encourage you to do a refresher on that if you haven't already. Yes, ma'am, your question.
I mean, I guess, state it like this. I had a co-occurring client, schizophrenia or some type of
Thought disorder.
maybe on psychotropic meds. IV drug user on methadone. Okay, and we're talking about harm reduction plus they suffer with seizures.
Plus what?
They suffer with seizures.
Medical, okay.
Seizure medication, and we all know that on methadone we have to increase that because the seizure medication will eat it up or whatever. But we talk about harm reduction. In a scenario like that, am I continuing to harm my client with that? Is it helping them in the long run with side effects from methadone versus the medication side or whatever? Am I stuck right there or talking about harm reduction?
She's talking about a client with schizophrenia, opiate dependence, seizure disorder. The client is on methadone, but it's causing problems with their seizure medications, and so the client is continuing to have seizures. And your question is, am I doing any harm by supporting the methadone continuance? Okay. I'm going to give you the chicken answer, and then I'm going to give you what I think is the one you're looking for. But the chicken answer is it's not your call, it's the doctor's. Okay? I get that that's a chicken answer. Okay? The second is, you know, guys, I spent the majority of my professional career working with seriously mentally ill people, and I love them. I don't know what it is about them, but the crazier they are, the better I like them. But one thing I did figure out is that no matter where the limits are and no matter how impaired they are, they still have a right to choose. We have a client who has schizophrenia. He talks to people, he does whatever, and he wanders the streets of Fredericksburg. And sometimes he'll yell at cars. We all know him, but he's allowed to do that because he doesn't play in traffic anymore. We have taught him that. Okay? But he wanders the streets. He's homeless most of the time. You know, we did our best to find him in the real cold winter and make sure that he had someplace to be. But he just won't live somewhere. We tried. He just won't live somewhere. And so we have to allow him to be him. I am here when I can be. And so my answer to you is, it really doesn't work to be paternalistic with these quadrant 4 clients. We can care for you. How much time? 7 minutes? Okay. Part of the hard part of our job, part of the hard part of your job is watching people kill themselves. Well, it's truth. It's absolute truth. I did an assessment on a young woman who came out of a 28-day treatment program. She had gotten out on Saturday. I saw her on Monday, and she'd already used opiates 4 times. I tried to do my motivational thing, and she told me to stick it in my left ear. And she walked out the door. It is hard to watch people kill themselves. I'm coming. Okay? But that is our job today. And hopefully, if you stay in this person's life long enough, and you say the same message over and over and over and over again, I care for you, and this concerns me. I care for you, and this concerns me. If you stay in this person's life long enough, the research suggests that it may help. But in the meantime, you are not paid enough to watch this guy kill himself. That's wrong. It's not the answer you wanted to hear, but that is your job today. Yes, ma'am. Who was it over here? Yeah.
That's kind of what I was asking, just in terms of harm reduction, is when do you decide that you need to up the ante? Because you have a pregnant woman who's drinking, or the alcoholic who's drinking and driving on a regular basis, and decide that you might be enabling the behavior by continuing to let them feel like they're in treatment and then they're getting better when they're not.
Kenneth Minkoff is, all right, he's not as good as Gorski, but he's right up there in my head anyway. I can't find it. But Dr. Minkoff says, you've got to let natural consequences hit them. I can care, and I'm probably not going to call the police when I know that you're leaving your home on a Friday night, but I'm not going to stand in the way when the po-po come knocking on your door. So the first answer is that we let natural consequences take care, because it will. Natural consequences will eventually get to them, hopefully before they're dead. Okay? The second is, hopefully, if our relationship is good enough, we can look at the least common denominator and what they are willing to work on. If the message is, Sally, every time you don't take your meds, you end up in the hospital. Sally, every time you don't take your meds, you end up in the hospital. After 5 years, Sally's probably eventually going to get that every time she doesn't take her meds, she ends up in the hospital. The problem is that then we've got 10 more of those problems, that it may take another 5 years to get through to her. We get a lot of support for you. We look long-term instead of short-term, and we work very hard at figuring out where that fine line is. I don't have a problem in the world in letting natural consequences occur. I don't even sometimes have a problem letting them shoot themselves in the foot so they end up outside my clinic. Okay? You know, you're not allowed to hit the secretary. I'm sorry. You got to go. Come back in 6 months when you're feeling better. I don't have a problem in the world with doing that. We have to allow some of those natural consequences to occur. And you're right, we need to stay out of the middle of that as much as possible. But especially with these quadrant 4 clients, the line for enabling is very murky and way much further out there than you and I are used to with quadrant 2 and 3 clients. Okay? It doesn't answer your question, but we're getting there. One last question. Yes, ma'am. Okay? Yeah. Right? Right? She's saying it's, I got it. She's saying it's generational. They learned this from their moms, who learned it from their moms, who learned it from their moms. How do you do this? When we talk about recovery-oriented systems of care, when we talk about co-occurring disorder treatment, it absolutely must, in every case, include what? The family. You've got to bring the families in. We've got to get the whole kit and caboodle. It doesn't do me any good to get Cynthia clean and sober if she's going back to her cousin who's using in her home. Right? We've got to bring the whole family in, and the answer is we educate the whole family. You know, Stephanie Brown did this great work on the developmental progression of the family addictions and the family enabling and so forth and so on. And her point was we have to intervene with the whole group, right? So we set up interventions in our short and our long-term programs to intervene with the family. And by the way, remember that long-term treatment approach? We get there, okay? We get them clean and sober. We get them working a lifestyle that makes some sense. And then we start talking about things like, this is how you have a healthy relationship. I can't tell you how often I have a conversation with people of what is a healthy relationship. They have the foggiest darn clue. You know, sometimes it's as easy as assertiveness training. How do you ask for what you want? Sometimes it's anger management. Sometimes it's codependency conversations. Sometimes it's how do you balance a checkbook. I swear to God, I had a conversation with a co-occurring client 3 weeks ago. We spent 2 sessions on how to balance your checkbook. You think that that's not good clinical work? I don't know who you are. Because I promise you, she will now be able to balance checkbook. She may not do it, but she at least knows how. We have to include case management, assertive outreach, especially with our co-occurring clients, and family intervention. Great question. Guys, have a good afternoon. Have a good lunch.